This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
A very good morning. You're watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and over the next 1 hour, we'll get you all the top stories from India and around the world in the economy, business, and markets domain. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you the headlines we're tracking for you this Tuesday morning. China gives satellite air defense help to Pakistan during clash with India, Indian Defense Research Group claims. Meanwhile, China accelerates work on MOHMAND Dam in Pakistan amid India-Pakistan water tensions and Indus Water Treaty freeze. There's a nationwide boycott of Turkish consumer goods, and this intensifies in India as distributors and Kirana stores withdraw products amid Turkey's support to Pakistan and use of Turkish drones in border conflict. The Enforcement Directorate has arrested former UCO Bank Chairman Subodh Kumar Goyal in the 6,200 crore rupee money laundering case. Alleges diversion of sanctioned loans through shell companies and personal gains, including cash and luxury assets. The United States announces strict visa restrictions on Indian travel agency owners and executives involved in facilitating illegal immigration as part of global crackdown on human smuggling and trafficking networks. Apple partner Honhai Precision Industry to invest $1.5 billion in India as iPhone production shifts from China. Meanwhile, Karnataka is set to become Apple's new global supply powerhouse as Foxconn's electronics manufacturing unit at Devanahalli nears completion, with commercial shipments of made-in-India iPhones expected by June this year. Elon Musk's Starlink is set to clear final regulatory hurdle as InSpace prepares to approve commercial satellite broadband services launch in India. And finally, US President Donald Trump says some progress made after 2.5-hour call with Vladimir Putin as Russia and Ukraine agree to immediately start ceasefire negotiations amid hopes for high-level peace talks. Let's start with the first story that we're tracking for you this morning now. In a major revelation, a leading India Defense Research Group said that China played a more direct role in Pakistan's recent conflict with India than previously known. And according to Center for Joint Warfare Studies, which operates under India's Ministry of Defense, China provided critical air defense and satellite support to Pakistan during its 4-day clash with India earlier this month. Now, the group's Director General Ashok Kumar told media that Beijing helped Islamabad reorganize its radar and air defense systems, allowing it to better monitor Indian troops and weapons movements. Now, Kumar further claimed that China helped Pakistan realign its satellite coverage over Indian territory in the days following the April 22nd massacre that left 26 people dead in Pahalgam. Now, while Pakistan has acknowledged using Chinese support weapons, Kumar's assessment points to a deeper level of coordination, suggesting China offered direct logistical as well as intelligence support. Now, so far, there has been no official word from the governments involved. Meanwhile, China is also ramping up the construction on a major infrastructure project in Pakistan, namely the MOHMAND Dam. amid tensions between India and Pakistan over water rights and the Indus Water Treaty that's now held in abeyance by India. According to a report in the South China Morning Post, concrete filling has begun on the MOHMAND Dam. The massive hydropower project is being built by the state-owned China Energy Engineering Corporation, which began work on the site in 2019. Beijing has described the MOHMAND Dam as a national flagship project for Pakistan, and the decision to fast-track it is widely seen as a sign of China's growing solidarity with Islamabad, especially following India's suspension of the decades-old Indus Water Treaty. The treaty, remember, was first signed in 1960 and it was halted by India in the aftermath of the April 22nd terror attack in Pahalgam. The MOHMAND Dam, located in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province across the Swat River, is a multi-purpose concrete-faced rock-filled dam. Once completed, it will stand 700 feet tall, making it the fifth tallest dam of its kind anywhere in the world. The dam is expected to generate 800 megawatts of electricity, deliver up to 300 million gallons of drinking water daily to Peshawar, and irrigate thousands of acres of farmland in Pakistan. It will also provide critical food protection to downstream communities. Now, nationwide boycott of Turkish origin consumer goods is growing stronger across India as tensions continue to simmer in the wake of Turkey's support for Pakistan during the recent military clash between India and Pakistan. The All India Consumer Products Distributors Federation, which represents over 4 lakh FMCG distributors and more than 1.3 crore Kirana stores across the country, has announced an indefinite and total boycott of all Turkish origin FMCG products effective immediately. The move comes amid a boycott Turkey campaign and includes an immediate withdrawal of Turkish chocolates, cosmetics and other consumer goods from retail shelves, supply chains and even e-commerce platforms. The backlash follows revelations that Turkish-made drones were used in recent attacks on Indian civilian and military targets. Remember, just days earlier, on May 16th, the Confederation of All India Traders passed a resolution calling for a boycott of Turkish goods during its national conference of trade leaders held here in New Delhi. Meanwhile, the Indian government is set to be re-evaluating its broader trade and strategic ties with Ankara. Additionally, several Indian universities and institutions have suspended academic agreements with Turkish counterparts, and some travel platforms have stopped offering packages to Turkey. And in another corporate development, the Enforcement Directorate has arrested former UCO Bank Chairman and Managing Director Subodh Kumar Goyal on charges of money laundering. The arrest made from Goyal's residence is linked to a massive loan fraud case involving over 6,200 crore rupees centered around the Kolkata-based company Konka Steel and Power Limited. The ED produced Goyal before a Special Prevention of Money Laundering Act court in Kolkata. He has been remanded to ED custody until tomorrow, May 21st. The case arises from a CBI FIR alleging that massive credit facilities were sanctioned to Konka Steel during Goyal's tenure at UCO Bank and that the funds were subsequently siphoned off through elaborate diversion tactics. The ED claims that Goyal personally benefited from the scheme. According to the investigators, he received cash, real estate assets, luxury goods, and even hotel bookings, all allegedly routed through a web of shell companies, dummy individuals, and family members in an attempt to hide the illicit origins of the money. The ED had earlier conducted raids in April at Goyal's premises and other linked locations. According to officials, the shell companies used in the laundering operations were beneficially owned or controlled by Goyal as well as his close relatives. But do remember, this is not the first instance of a bank chief being arrested. Recent history has quite a few, if you can call them that, trailblazers. Let's look at some of the ones that have been taken into custody in the past. Remember, S.K. Jain, the former chairman and managing director of Syndicate Bank, he was arrested for alleged bribery back in 2014. There was also the case of Pradeep Chaudhary, a former SBI chairman held in 2021 over defaulter asset sale. Then, of course, there was this case of Shamal Acharya, who's the former deputy managing director of the State Bank of India. He was also arrested in a bribery case in 2021. And I'm sure you would remember Rana Kapoor, the Yes Bank founder, who was arrested in 2020, again in a money laundering case. Then there was Yogesh Agarwal, IDBI's former chairman. He was arrested in 2017 for irregularities in extending loans to the beleaguered Kingfisher Airlines. Then, of course, the poster woman of India's banking sector, Chanda Kochar, ICICI Bank's former CEO, she was held in 2023 for alleged graft. She's now on bail but under trial. And then there was, of course, finally the case of Ravindra Marathe, former CEO of Bank of Maharashtra, who was arrested in 2018 in a DSK fraud case. All right, moving on now. The United States has announced tough new steps to curb illegal immigration from India. The U.S. State Department said it will impose visa restrictions on owners, executives, as well as senior officials of Indian travel agencies that knowingly facilitate illegal immigration to the U.S. According to the statement, the Indian missions counselor and security teams are actively working to identify and target those involved in smuggling and human trafficking operations. The move is part of Washington's broader strategy to crack down on illegal immigration networks. The State Department emphasized that individuals who violate immigration laws, including travel agency operators, will be held accountable. It added that the visa ban policy is global in scope and also applies to those eligible for the visa waiver program. And moving on now to a brand that we all like and use. This is a story on iPhone. In a major move, Hon Hai Precision Industry, the primary manufacturer of Apple's iPhones, has announced a $1.5 billion investment in its India operations. The Taiwan-based company disclosed this investment through its Singaporean subsidiary as it ramps up production capacity and builds new plants in India. This development comes as Apple aims to source most of its iPhones it sells in the US from India by the end of the year. Remember, the shift reflects growing concerns over tariffs, with US President Donald Trump recently urging Apple CEO Tim Cook to halt plans for expanding Apple's production in India. Currently, the majority of Apple's iPhones are made in China, but India's share has grown to almost 20% of the total global supply. Almost every second iPhone sold in the US is now made in India, and there's no smartphone manufacturing based in the US, although Apple has committed to increasing US hiring and made a commitment to invest as much as $500 billion in the home country, the US, over the next 4 years, or the duration of Donald Trump's presidency. And staying with Apple, Karnataka is set to emerge as a key player in Apple's global supply chain, with Foxconn's new electronics manufacturing unit at Devanahalli nearing completion. The State Minister for Commerce and Industries, MB Patil, recently announced that the facility is almost ready to begin commercial shipments, with made-in-India iPhones expected to hit the market as early as June. Amid rising geopolitical tensions and tariff pressures, India is fast becoming Apple's preferred production hub. Patil highlighted that development not only strengthens Karnataka's position in global manufacturing, but also opens up fresh opportunities for foreign investment. In a confirmation, Apple CEO Tim Cook has said that most of the iPhones sold in the US during the upcoming June quarter will be those assembled in India. The new Foxconn facility covers 300 acres within the Information Technology Investment Region in Bengaluru Rural District and follows a massive 21,900 crore rupee capital investment supported by over 6,900 crore rupees state incentives under the Electronic System Design and Manufacturing Initiative of the state. And looking at other US companies wanting to do business in India, Donald Trump notwithstanding, is Elon Musk's Starlink, which is now on the verge of clearing its final regulatory hurdle to begin satellite communication services in India. The nodal agency in India, InSpace, which operates under the Department of Science, is expected to grant approval soon for Starlink to launch its commercial satellite broadband services in India. The Interministerial Standing Committee of InSpace, including key members from the Departments of Space, Information and Broadcasting, Telecom, Home Affairs, External Affairs and Commerce, will review Starlink's proposal in its upcoming meeting. According to media sources, the crucial ministries of Home and External Affairs, which handle security and geopolitical concerns, have already approved Starlink's plans at the Department of Telecom level. In fact, the Department of Telecom issued a letter of intent to Starlink on May 7th, approving its application for a global mobile personal communication by satellite license. Staying with the telecom space, the Supreme Court on Monday dismissed pleas from Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea as well as Tata Teleservices seeking a waiver on interest penalties and interest on penalties collectively amounting to over 80,000 crore rupees related to pending adjustment gross revenue or AGR dues. A bench led by Justices J.B. Pardiwala and R. Madhavan called the petitions shocking and misconceived, stating the relief sought was not legally sustainable. The court also rejected senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi's request to withdraw Vodafone Idea's petition, choosing instead to dismiss it outright. Senior advocate Arvind Datar, representing Tata Teleservices, sought to be made a party in the matter, but the court dismissed Tata's plea as well. However, the bench noted that if the government decides to offer relief to these companies, the court would not stand in their way. Rohatgi stressed Vodafone Idea's position, saying the government now owns 50% of the company, but claimed it cannot assist due to the Supreme Court judgment. Meanwhile, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta told the court the government could examine relief requests because of the judgment. Meanwhile, Vodafone Idea shares tumbled sharply as much as 10% on Monday following the court's rejection of its plea against the government order denying AGR relief. We will slip into a very short break right here on Morning Brief at 9, but coming up on the other side, we'll bring you the mood check on the Lal Street as markets have only just opened. You're watching News 9.
This is the drive of your dreams. Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
Skoda.
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News 9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News 9's pick of the week, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News 9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. The Indian stock markets on the Lal Street have opened just a few minutes ago, and well, unlike yesterday when the Sensex and the Nifty lost almost a third of a percentage in its value, today seems to be a slightly greener start for the markets, at least. In fact, these were the indications that were coming from the GIFT Nifty as well, that markets would have a stronger, greener start, and that's what we are seeing on the boards this morning. Sensex and Nifty both in the positive territory. Nifty 50 up about 0.16% or so, still below the crucial 25,000 levels, but just 15 points below that 25,000 level. Let's see if in today's trade we can surpass that 25,000 level. Sensex meanwhile up almost 0.2% at about 82,200 200 odd levels. A better start for the Nifty small cap, which is now up about 1/3 of a percentage point at about 17,700. That's the Nifty small cap 100 index for you. India VIX also seems to be in a slightly better position than what we saw, at least during Operation Sindoor, when on a particular day it had surpassed the 23, 24 levels as well. Now the fear index is down at just about 17 odd levels. Let's look at the Nifty 50 heat map and see where all the positive action is coming from. Well, unlike yesterday, when the IT sector was the drag on the markets, this morning it is the IT sector which is actually lifting the mood on the Lal Street. Infosys, which was down about 1.5% or so in trade yesterday, is incidentally up this morning about by the same percentage. So about 1.1% or so is the story coming in on Infosys. In fact, most IT stocks are in the green territory. HCL Tech is up about 0.6%. TCS is also up about 0.6% or so. Wipro and Tech Mahindra also climbing higher in trade this morning. Banks seem to be fairly flat. ICICI Bank is up about 0.3%, whereas HDFC Bank is down about 0.3%. SBI is absolutely flat. Well, Reliance was another laggard yesterday. Reliance had stock had lost more than 1% in trade, but that seems to be a little more in control this morning, when Reliance, even though negative, is still down by just about 0.26% or so. Better news coming in from other sectors in the energy space, ONGC and Coal India doing better. So, well, that's the mood on the markets this morning. We have a very special guest who has taken the time out this Tuesday morning to be with us. The founder of FinTrek Capital, Amit Kumar Gupta, joins us this morning. Amit, good morning. What are you making on the mood of the market? We saw a slight correction yesterday. Would you call it consolidation now? What phase of the market are we in right now?
Yeah, hi Karthik. Thank you for having me. I believe there is a little bit of consolidation. Obviously, the liquidity situation has improved quite a lot over the last 45 days or so. So despite, all the Trump tariffs, the Q4 earnings going a little under expectations, my sense is that, we are sort of in a dichotomous situation where India is the favorite, macro darling in otherwise a turbulent world. But earnings recovery remains very, very stock specific. So if you look at the fourth quarter earnings so far, they have been up about 7.5% year on year, but that's mainly driven by banks and lending institutions. So there are a lot of parts in the market where the earnings recovery is not there, hence they are sort of consolidating.
All right. Amit, I want to draw your attention specifically to the IT pack, and the IT pack is something that we have seen which has been extremely fluctuating over the last maybe 10-15 days or so. There are days when it climbs up about 1%, 1.5%. There are days that it comes down by a similar margin. And the trend that seems to now be noticed on the IT sector stocks, especially the ones on the Nifty 50, the ones that we are flashing on the screen right now, is that absolute direct correlation with what is happening in the US is no more reflecting on IT stocks here in India. Why is that so?
Yeah, I think the Nifty IT do reflect what is happening on the Nasdaq, but not always. The reason for that is probably whenever something negative happens in the global world, then they sort of trade negatively. And what we have also seen is that at certain point of time, market is looking for some sort of a defensive approach. In that case, the valuations are reasonable on the IT pack, so you see a upstart. But it is still down 25% from the top, but it is also up about 15% from the bottom. So my sense is that there will be a lot of consolidation in the IT sector in general, especially in the IT services pack, because the Nifty IT index consists of mainly IT services. So there will be a lot of consolidation till there is much more clarity on the global growth.
All right. And what about the auto stocks, Amit? Because auto stocks is also an important theme. And as of now, any FTA, any trade deal, any negotiation that India is involved with, whether it is with the UK, whether it is with the EU or even with the US for that matter, there is pressure on India to cut tariffs on auto imports, and auto exports for other countries should be facing lower tariffs when they come to the seaports here in India. How do you think for, let's say, the medium to long term, will the India auto story play out if India were to give into pressure like it has already done with the UK and cut tariffs on auto? Is this going to attract a flurry of automobile brands coming and getting rid of all the Indian competition?
Not in the near term. That may happen in 2-3 years, but I don't see too much of an impact, immediately. Moreover, the auto companies would also export, so it will sort of balance it out. But the situation, the macro situation currently is actually favorable for equities with the rate cuts happening. Most probably by the festive season starts, we'll have the rate cut passed on to the consumers. Crude oil prices have also come down. Rupee has also appreciated. So I think all that would lead to some sort of a gain in the bottom line of most of these auto companies. I'm not too negative on the auto pack as such, but as far as the tariffs situation is concerned, it's a developing situation. We have to see what kind of deals are fructified with the US especially, but there could be chances of tariff cut there as well.
All right. I want to spend a minute or two and pick on something you said, Amit, just a while back, that even the export market for India's auto companies would open up. Is that story likely to be more restricted to auto components as opposed to real four-wheeler, two-wheeler brands? Because in the past also, we haven't really seen companies like Mahindra and Mahindra or even Tata Motors for that matter get great reception in markets like Europe and the US. So do you think that tariffs being cut will be a positive perhaps for India's auto components which get exported, but perhaps a negative for the for the four-wheeler companies here in India?
Yeah, I mean, auto components would be a preferred choice over auto companies or the OEMs because most of the OEMs have multiple moving parts. So, for example, Mahindra and Mahindra, they do tractors, they do SUVs, they do other components as well. I would prefer to bet on an auto ancillary which can cater to multiple OEMs rather than betting on a single OEM. It's just more risky with the global trade war happening, and constantly we are seeing changes in the trade policies of various countries. Auto ancillaries would be preferred over auto components.
All right. Let's talk about the banking sector, Amit. With interest rates now likely to be cut again by RBI in its June Monetary Policy Committee meeting, what happens to net interest margins? Do you think there's now going to be, with a cut in interest rates, there's going to be greater demand for loans from banks and NBFCs? How's that story likely to pan out, let's say, over the next 3 to 6 months if RBI does go ahead and cut rates, as the expectation is in the first week of June?
So I think the NIMs will still remain compressed for a couple of quarters as the market adjusts to the earnings projections for the next couple of years. My sense is that consumer loans would go up with a cut in the interest rates, and there could be potentially a couple of more interest rate cuts by the RBI in the June and the August meeting, or probably October meeting as well. So consumer loans can pick up. I'm not so sure about private capex getting picked up very quickly. The whole bet about the lending financial is that the credit growth will actually increase. But when you see the demand scenarios in a lot of these companies who are planning to do private capex, they're just holding back because of the global situation at this point of time. So it can happen, but it may take more time than expected. We are neutral about lending financials as such. We believe that there could be opportunity down the line, but not immediately.
Okay, and finally, I also want to talk to you about consumer products, FMCG, the entire consumer non-durable pack. And with the sort of backlash that we are seeing on distributors and retailers wanting to boycott Turkish products, etc., I'm sure they don't make a large chunk of what we see on retail shelves. But there are 2-3 factors. One is, of course, what is happening geopolitically. The other is that April was meant to be the month when the finance minister's increment by way of income tax relief would have kicked in. So those salaries now coming in the month of May, a better mood for consumption when it comes to FMCG. Do you think the FMCG sector is poised to grow from here?
So a couple of things. I think the bans, whatever products are being banned in via Turkey or even other countries, I don't think that will impact so much because the percentage is very, very less than probably 0.1%. And there are enough alternatives to that. So I don't think that will happen. The consumption, should pick up with the new tax cuts, with the RBI cuts being passed on. But having said that, most of the FMCG pack which is listed in the index, that is very expensive in the valuations. So there are newer opportunities like food delivery, etc., which are coming up, which are providing a very strong competition to that. Moreover, there are a lot of unlisted and startup brands which are coming, which are directly challenging to these traditional FMCG companies. So my sense is, given the high valuations these lot of FMCG companies are commanding, I'm not very comfortable buying them. I would rather buy on a competitor which can be increase market share much more rapidly. Not very keen on buying FMCG companies from the index.
All right. But overall, Amit, if we were to sort of, pin our hopes on the broad indices, the Sensex and the Nifty right now, what is the trajectory? Because we haven't really been able to identify how much of markets have factored in the external tariff threats, which are now on a hiatus. How much of a trade deal coming through has been factored in, and it seems that at least the tension on the border seems to have de-escalated. So overall, where is the trajectory of the market here on, and how long do you think before we come back to the September high that we had seen maybe on the 26th and 27th of September last year? Are we on that track to get there, or do you think markets are still battling some sort of fear of the unknown and still a little pessimistic about how the world order and India's own political story, at least on the tensions with now Turkey, even though Pakistan ebbed, are we still sort of a little jittery about where we feel the markets would be headed?
So a couple of things on that. One, I think the escalation on the border that would probably stay, and that would impact the businesses all around, impact the economy as well. Whether it gets escalated or remains as a status quo, that we have to see. But that's a risk at the back of the mind of investors, and that's why you are also seeing a lot less retail participation. Apart from probably mutual fund SIPs, the direct equity investing, which was happening very aggressively till about January. That has really come off because of this Trump war and because of the geopolitical situation in the last 30 days or so.
Right.
So my sense is that it's a developing situation. We have to see, how it unfolds over the next 45 days or so. Remember, the 90-day deadline, expires sometime in first week of July, around 10th of July, I believe. There could be still a lot of investment strategy changes which can happen depending on how the situation unfolds. Remember, nobody was really participating in the defense stocks, but because of the geopolitical situation, again they have gone up. Market will keep on, I think, throwing these kind of surprises. It's much more important to stick with your investment strategies and with your stocks. I don't expect a new all-time high very quickly, at least not in the next couple of months. My belief is we'll consolidate, and probably in H2 only of the current year, we'll see a up move if things pan out positively as expected.
All right. Now, apart from the talks, the negotiations with the US and the EU right now, and of course the the RBI rate decision which will come in June, are there other factors that markets are watching out for, waiting to get some update on before we get into that hopefully that bull run period again? What are the external or the domestic factors that markets are really waiting for by way of news flow, which will determine the mood from here?
Right. So I think, one positive thing which has happened is the liquidity infusions, especially by the RBI. We have also seen Fed, also injecting a lot of money to keep the bond market stabilized. We have seen rate cut from ECB and, some other central banks as well. For me, the managing the fiscal deficit will be important from here. If, India is able to do that, then market will take a lot of hope from that, and they can push in that form. Remember, government will be getting a lot of dividends from the cash-rich PSUs. RBI is expected to give a big dividend more than last year. So we are expecting somewhere $2 billion, more than $2 billion of dividend this time around. Again, there could be instances of higher taxation on the income taxpayers going forward. So there are a lot of things, and also divestment opportunities are there for the government.
Right.
Because a lot of the share prices have gone up in the PSU space. One new thing which has come up is the SEBI's new consultation paper, where a lot of PSU companies will be delisted since they are not able to meet the MPS, the minimum public shareholding norms. And I think that is very important because suddenly you can get 5,000-10,000 crores by selling a PSU, doing just delisting of that company. So I think there are a lot of opportunities, but obviously the tariff thing needs to be clarified over the next couple of months. We have to see, how much, what are the rates finally we settle at, and accordingly, adjust investment strategy according to that. But overall, I think it's a positive situation. So we are cautiously optimistic on the markets.
Cautiously optimistic. Well, that's the word coming in. Amit Kumar Gupta, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here on Newsline.
Thank you, Karthik, for having me.
And before we slip into a short break, let's look at some of the global headlines that we're tracking for you today. US President Donald Trump claims Russia and Ukraine will begin immediate ceasefire talks after holding talks with Putin and Zelensky separately, raising hopes for a pause in the 3-year-old conflict. Donald Trump pushes back on AI misuse. His new Take It Down Act makes deepfakes and non-consensual content a criminal offense in the United States. The White House says President Donald Trump disagrees with Moody's decision to downgrade the US credit rating. Meanwhile, US markets stay largely flat despite the Moody's downgrade, with Wall Street showing muted reaction. China's factory output held steady in April despite US tariffs, but economists warn of slowing growth ahead. The United Kingdom and European Union agreed to reset ties on trade and defense, calling it a new era in post-Brexit cooperation. French President Emmanuel Macron says the Choose France summit will unlock over 20 billion euros in fresh investments. NVIDIA unveils plans to launch new tech that boosts communication between AI chips, aiming to fast-track processing. And finally, the World Health Organization says 70 countries are missing out on vital treatment due to global funding cuts, warning of a growing health crisis in the world. These stories on the other side. You are watching Morning Brief at 9.
Warfare redefined.
Pakistan has not only been exposed, their narrative that their air force is superior than ours, that narrative has been shattered.
nature of warfare has changed drastically.
Misinformation campaign of Pakistan over the past 48 to 72 hours.
We are capable enough to thwart every attempt that is being made to attack the civilians, to attack our air forces.
The armed forces are giving an adequate and appropriate response.
India one step ahead. Every signal, every sky secured.
Hormuz could likely have been used against Pakistan. It's a good face saver, if I may use the term, for Pakistan.
What more evidence does the world need when we're talking about Pakistan's biggest export being terrorism?
News 9 salutes the Indian Armed Forces. Smart, swift, unstoppable.
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
Operation Sindoor was unleashed, launched a precision military response targeting terror camps deep inside Pakistan.
This has to be now a all-out war against Pakistan's proxy war.
Things are heating up everywhere. Rawalpindi has also been hit.
Pakistan seems to be out of options right now.
Terror shall not go unanswered. Operation Sindoor is still on.
Back, you're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's bring you all the global stories that we're tracking for you this Tuesday morning. The US President Donald Trump says he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin for over 2.5 hours on Monday, with both leaders agreeing to support immediate negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. But despite the lengthy call, there were no clear concessions secured from the Kremlin, raising questions about the talks' impact. Here's what we know so far.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and an end to their 3-year-old war, after holding a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place.
After the call with Trump, Putin told reporters in Sochi that efforts to end the war were generally on the right track.
Президент Соединенных Штатов высказал свою позицию.
The U.S. president has expressed his position on the ceasefire, and I, for my part, also noted that Russia also favors a peaceful settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. We should simply determine the most effective ways to move toward peace. We agreed with the U.S. president that Russia will suggest and is ready to work with the Ukrainian side on a memorandum on a possible future peace treaty, which defines a number of issues such as the principles of settlement, the terms of a possible peace agreement, and so on, including a possible ceasefire for a certain period of time if the appropriate agreements are reached.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke to Trump one-on-one before the Putin call and then again afterwards in a conversation with other European leaders. He told reporters that he hoped a high-level meeting with Russia, the U.S., and other nations could happen as soon as possible.
We are considering a meeting of all teams again. We would like it to be at a high level. America, Ukraine, Russia, European countries, and Great Britain. Such a meeting could take place in Turkey, the Vatican, or Switzerland.
Ukraine has said it is ready for a ceasefire now, while Russia has said conditions must be met first. Direct talks last week between Moscow and Kyiv had failed to achieve a truce.
Look, I'd say we're more than open to walking away.
Shortly before the Trump-Putin call, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters that Washington recognized there was a bit of an impasse.
Look, I think one open question is Vladimir Putin serious about negotiating peace, right? He has made some concessions. He has taken some serious steps in these conversations, but we feel like, we're at a point where we're hitting an impasse, and that's why the president is talking to him on the phone. I think, honestly, that President Putin, he doesn't quite know how to get out of the war.
Trump, who has promised to bring a swift end to Europe's deadliest war since World War II, has repeatedly called for a ceasefire. Putin, whose forces control a fifth of Ukraine and are advancing, has stood firm on his conditions for ending the war, despite public and private pressure from Trump and repeated warnings from European powers.
And staying with U.S. President Donald Trump, Trump has signed the Take It Down Act into law, a major move to combat the growing threat of non-consensual intimate imagery and AI-generated deepfakes. The new legislation makes such content a criminal offense in the U.S. First Lady Melania Trump, present at the Rose Garden ceremony, said the law would help protect families from online abuse and digital exploitation. Listen in to what both had to say.
It's an honor to join you here today for the signing of the Take It Down Act, a national victory that will help parents and families protect children from online exploitation. Artificial intelligence and social media are the digital candy for the next generation. Sweet, addictive, and engineered to have an impact on the cognitive development of our children. But unlike sugar, these new technologies can be weaponized, shape beliefs, and sadly affect emotions and even be deadly.
Today, it's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subject's consent. They take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent or anything else. And very importantly, this includes for forgeries generated by artificial intelligence known as deepfakes. We've all heard about deepfakes. I have them all the time, but nobody does anything. I asked Pam, can you help me, Pam? She says, no, I'm too busy doing other things. Don't worry, you'll survive. But a lot of people don't survive. That's true, and so horrible. With the rise of AI image generation, countless women have been harassed with deepfakes and other explicit images distributed against their will. This is the wrong, and it's just so horribly wrong. And it's a very abusive situation, like in some cases people have never seen before. And today we're making it totally illegal.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump's ambitious tax cut bill has finally cleared a key congressional committee on Monday, breaking tough days of Republican infighting over spending cuts. The approval marks a rare legislative win for both Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson as they push to deliver on core fiscal promises. More details in this report.
Mr. Norman, President.
U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tax cut bill cleared a key congressional hurdle on Sunday in a rare victory for Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson.
The ayes have it. The motion's agreed to. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is ordered, reported favorably to the House of Representatives with a favorable recommendation.
At an unusual Sunday night session, 4 hardline Republican conservatives on the House Budget Committee let the bill move forward after blocking it days earlier. The bill's cuts would kick 8.6 million people off Medicaid, the joint federal-state program for low-income Americans. Yet hardliners have pushed for bigger cuts to Medicaid and the complete repeal of green energy tax credits implemented by Democrats. One of the 4 hardliners, Representative Chip Roy, told reporters after the panel's approval that while progress had been made over the weekend, quote, "We didn't get nearly far enough." The legislation would extend tax cuts passed in 2017, Trump's signature first-term legislative achievement. Trump has highlighted measures including lifting taxes on tips and overtime that Republicans say would boost working-class Americans, while critics say the bill will offer more benefits to the wealthy. Nonpartisan analysts say the bill would add $3 to $5 trillion to the nation's debt over the next decade. Moody's cited the rising debt for its decision on Friday to downgrade its U.S. credit rating. In a pair of TV interviews earlier on Sunday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent dismissed Moody's action, saying the bill would spur economic growth that would outpace what the nation owed. Congressional Republicans in 2017 also argued that the tax cuts would pay for themselves by stimulating economic growth. But the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates the changes increased the federal deficit by just under $1.9 trillion over a decade, even when including positive economic effects. Johnson said the Moody's credit downgrade showed the need for the tax bill, saying, quote, "We're talking about historic spending cuts. I mean, this will help to change the trajectory for the U.S. economy." A possible vote on the bill in the House of Representatives could take place later this week.
And staying with the U.S. economy, the White House said on Monday that President Donald Trump disagrees with Moody's decision to downgrade the U.S. sovereign credit rating, calling the move unwarranted. Moody's ratings downgraded the credit rating of the United States of America last week. The downgrade signals a warning to investors and could increase borrowing costs for Americans already grappling with high inflation as well as persistent tariff threats. While House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters that the world still has strong confidence in the American economy. Let's listen in to what she said exactly.
The president talked about this over the weekend. The Secretary of Treasury also talked about it. When you look at the world has confidence in the United States of America and our economy once again. The president just last week secured trillions of dollars in investments from countries in the Middle East. We have seen trillions of dollars of investments flowing into our economy since the president took office. That is because America or people around the world have confidence in the United States of America. And if you also just look at the raw economic data that we're seeing, last week when we were out of town, inflation dropped once again. Oil prices are dropping, gas prices are dropping. The president has added nearly 500,000 jobs to the American economy already. So there's a lot of optimism in this economy, and the president disagrees with that assessment.
All right, well, India's Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has held talks with the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to expedite the first tranche of the India-U.S. bilateral trade agreement. Now, taking to social media, Piyush Goyal said good discussions with Secretary Howard Lutnick towards expediting the first tranche of India-US bilateral trade agreement. Remember, Piyush Goyal's visit to the US comes as India seeks to clinch a trade deal within the 90-day pause on tariff hikes announced by US President Donald Trump on April 9th for major trading partners, including the 26% tariff on India. And amid an intense US-China trade standoff and a fragile 90-day tariff truce, China's factory output slowed in April, offering a mixed picture of resilience and risk. Industrial output rose 6.1% year-on-year, down from March 7.7%, as government support measures helped cushion the impact of rising US tariffs. While Beijing remains confident of hitting its 5% growth target, Trump's unpredictable trade moves and lingering 30% tariffs continue to cloud the export outlook. And in their most significant move since Brexit, Britain and the European Union agreed on Monday to reset defense and trade relations, a major shift driven by growing global instability under US President Donald Trump's foreign policy pivot. The agreement marks a turning point in UK-EU ties as both sides look to move past years of friction and forge a more united front in an increasingly uncertain world. Here's more.
It marks a new era in our relationship.
Britain struck a deal with the European Union on Monday that will see the most significant reset of defence and trade ties since Brexit. It comes after US President Donald Trump's upending of the global order pushed the two sides to move on from their bitter divorce. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the agreement a win-win.
It gives us unprecedented access to the EU market, the best of any country outside of the EU or EFTA, all while sticking to the red lines in our manifesto about not rejoining the single market, the customs union, and no return to freedom of movement.
At the heart of the reset is a new defence and security pact. It will let Britain be part of any joint procurement and pave the way for British companies to take part in a $167 billion programme to rearm Europe. Britain said the deal will also cut red tape for food and agricultural producers, making food cheaper, improve energy security, and add about $12 billion to the economy by 2040. A contentious new fishing agreement was signed and a limited youth mobility scheme was outlined, while British visitors will have faster access to the EU by way of airport e-gates.
This is the story of historical and natural partners standing side by side on the global stage.
EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen highlighted the importance of finding solutions together as allies. Relations were poisoned by years of post-Brexit arguments, but collaboration between Britain and European powers over Ukraine and Trump has rebuilt trust between the two sides. Monday's agreement was denounced by Brexit campaigner Nigel Farage, whose anti-immigration Reform Party has seen a recent rise in popularity, putting pressure on the Labour government. The deal was also criticised by the opposition Conservative Party, which oversaw the 2016 Brexit vote and spent years negotiating the original divorce deal.
And with that, it's a wrap right here on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. Thank you so much for joining in, but don't go anywhere because news and updates continue right here on News 9. Neha Bhan is up next with all the latest news.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's time